how death-proof cars work, and why they're not quite what they sound like. Hey, I'm G. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been sitting at a spotlight, glancing at the sleek new SUV next to you and wondering, is this thing actually built to survive a crash, like they say? Maybe you've seen those viral crash test. Maybe you've seen those viral crash test videos online. Cars crumpling like soda cans, while others walk away from 50-mile-an-hour head-ons with barely a scratch. It makes you think, are we living in a future where cars are basically indestructible? Today, we're diving into the engineering marvels behind so-called death-proof car vehicles that seem to shrug off collisions that would have been fatal just a few decades ago. Spoiler, no car is truly death-proof, but modern vehicles are getting scarily good at keeping us alive. Welcome to the Stuff You Should Think About, where I tackle everyday questions about the phenomena and objects around you in bite-sized episodes. I do the digging so you don't have to, and I bring the answers back in a way you can listen to on your break, on your way to work, or whenever you've got a little free time. Before we get started, just a quick heads up. I'm not an expert on automotive engineering or crash safety design. I'm just a curious person who did some research so you don't have to. My goal isn't to tell you what to think or what to do, it's to explain how the system works from a big picture perspective. We're talking physics, material science, and decades of trial, error, and tragic lessons learned. Let's go. First, we'll discuss the mechanics. The journey to understanding how cars protect us in crashes isn't a single event. It's a process with several key steps. Designers don't just build cars to be strong, they build them to fail in a very specific, controlled way. Sounds weird, but let me break it down. Number one, they have crumple zones. Imagine throwing a raw egg at a brick wall. It smashes instantly. Right. Now imagine wrapping that egg in bubble wrap and tossing it off a balcony. The outer layers absorb the impact, slowing down the force acting on the egg. That's the idea behind crumple zones. Modern cars are designed to crush on purpose in front and rear sections. The frames bend, fold, and collapse in a calculated way to absorb kinetic energy. This buys crucial milliseconds, reducing the g-forces your body experiences when you stop suddenly. The stronger passenger cabin stays intact, like the egg surviving in bubble wrap. A real-world example is in 2015, a crash test. A Toyota Camry hit a barrier at 40 miles an hour. The front end looked totaled, but inside, the crash test dummy recorded minimal injury risk. The crumple zone did its job. The survival cell is your safety cage. While the front and rear give way, the passenger compartment, the safety cell or safety cage, is built from high-strength steel and reinforced structures designed not to collapse. Pillars A, B, and C, roof rails, and floor beams form a rigid shell that protects occupants from intrusion during side impacts, rollovers, or frontal collisions. Think of it like a turtle shell. Soft edges that absorb hits, but a hard core that stays protected. Seatbelts have evolved way beyond simple traps. Today's three-point seatbelts include pretensioners. These are tiny pre-technic charges that yank the belt tight the instant a car crash is detected, before your body even starts moving forward. Load limiters. These allow a little give once pressure reaches dangerous levels, preventing chest injuries from the belt being too rigid. It's like having a robotic co-pilot who tightens your belt before the crash fully happens. Airbags. You probably know about front airbags, but modern cars have up to 10 or more, including side impact, curtain, knee, and even rear seat airbags. And here's the wild part. They deploy in milliseconds, faster than the blink of an eye, and inflate at speeds over 200 miles an hour. But they also are smarter now. Sensors decide which airbags to deploy based on crash type, seat occupancy, and even how the person is sitting. Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, or ADAS. This is where prevention comes in. Modern cars don't just protect you during a crash, they'll be avoided entirely. Automatic braking system, or AEB, detects a potential collision and brakes for you if you don't react. Lane departure warning and lane keeping assist alerts you or gently steers you back if you drift. Blind spot monitoring gives you a heads up when someone's in your blind zone. Adaptive cruise control maintains a safe distance from the car ahead. Cars with AEB have 50% fewer front to rear crashes. None of this happens by accident. Car makers run thousands of virtual and real world crash tests using crash test dummies that cost over $1 million each and are packed with sensors. They simulate everything: head-on, side impacts, rollovers, even pedestrian strikes. Organizations like the NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and Euro NCAP rate cars on safety. Those 5-star ratings, they push manufacturers to keep improving. Even though car safety can be a hot topic, especially when regulations, cost, or tech dependence come into play, there are some areas where most people agree. Everyone wants to protect kids and families. Whether you drive a minivan or a pickup, no one wants their loved one getting hurt in a crash. Preventing death and injury is a shared goal. It doesn't matter your politics, you don't want people dying on the roads. Technology should make things safer, not more dangerous. Even skeptics of AI or automation in cars usually agree that backup cameras and blind spot detection are helpful. Regulation has played a positive role. Seatbelts, airbag mandates, and crash standards have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Most people acknowledge that some rules are worth having. The story of modern car safety didn't happen in a vacuum. It was built on tragedy, outrage, and relentless advocacy. Back in 1950 and 60s, car crashes were treated like accidents, freak events you just had to accept. Car designs prioritized style and power over safety. There were no seatbelts, no crumple zones, and no real crash testing. That changed in 1966, thanks largely to a book that shook America, Unsafe at Any Speed by Ralph Nader. The book exposed how automakers ignore safety to save money and boost sales. One of its main targets, the Chevrolet Corvair, which had a dangerous handling flaw. Public outrage was massive. Congress held hearings, and in 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed a 2 landmark law the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act, the Highway Safety Act. These created the NHTSA and gave it power to set federal safety standards, things like mandatory seatbelts, brake requirements, and structural integrity rules. Nader versus General Motors in 1970. After GM was caught spying on Ralph Nader, he sued and won. This case became symbolic of the fight between corporate power and consumer rights. State seatbelt laws. Starting in 1980s, New York was the first state to pass the mandatory seatbelt law in 1984. Today, all states except New Hampshire have some form of seatbelt law. The airbag mandate, 1988. Federal law required all new passenger cars to have front airbags. These weren't just technical changes, they were cultural shifts. We went from accepting death on the roads to demanding accountability. Now, I want to be transparent about my own bias. I tend to be an optimistic about technology, especially when it saves lives. I love how engineering, data, and design can come together to solve human problems. I get excited about cars that can brake themselves or warn you when you're swerving. But I also recognize the blind spots. Not everyone can afford a new car with all the latest safety issues. Rural drivers, low-income families, and older adults often rely on older, less safe vehicles. And let's be honest, some ADAS systems can glitch, confuse drivers, or create a false sense of security. So while I applaud innovation, I also believe safety should be accessible, not just a luxury add-on. My lens is hopeful, but it's grounded in reality that tech alone won't fix everything. To put things in perspective, let's look at a historical parallel, the seatbelt. When seatbelts were first introduced in the 1950s, many people mocked them. They're unnecessary. They're for cowards. I'm a good driver. I don't need one. Sound familiar? That's almost exactly what people say today about automatic braking or lane keeping systems. But over time, seatbelts went from optional curiosities to seatbelt sign flashing norms. Usage jumped from under 15% in the 1980s to over 90% today. And guess what? Seatbelts save about 15,000 lives per year in the U.S. alone. The lesson: safety tech often faces resistance at first, but once people see it works, acceptance follows. What's annoying or unnecessary today might be standard and life-saving tomorrow. There is no single path forward when it comes to making roads safer. But here are a few different approaches people are taking. Automakers invest in stronger materials like ultra-high-strength steel and aluminum, smarter sensors, and AI-driven safety systems. Tesla's Autopilot, Volvo's Vision Zero, aiming for zero traffic deaths, and GM's Super Cruise all are pushing boundaries. Government regulators set mandatory safety standards, fund research, and incentives safer designs. The NHTSA is currently pushing for automatic emergency braking to be standard on all new vehicles by 2029. Cities and infrastructure planners redesign roads to be safer, adding protected bike lanes, lowering speed limits in urban areas, and using smart traffic signals. Because sometimes the safest car is the one that never crashes in the first place. Consumers and advocacy groups demand better safety ratings, support legislation, and choose safer vehicles. Organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD, and IIHS have shaped policy and public opinion for decades. These aren't mutually exclusive. The final answer will probably be a mix of several better cars, smarter roads, and more responsible driving habits. So, what should you think about when it comes to death-proof cars? It's a complex, multi-stage process involving controlled collapse crumple zones, rigid survival cells, smart restraints, advanced airbags, and AI-powered crash prevention. There's no magic bullet, but there are a lot of tools in the toolbox. No car can withstand every crash scenario, especially at high speeds or in older models, but thanks to decades of engineering, advances, and safety standards, today's average family sedan is safer than a luxury car from the 1990s. And the best part, the trend is still moving upward. Every year, vehicles get smarter, stronger, and more protective. That's it for this episode of The Stuff You Should Think About. Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful, hit subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. Leave a comment with your thoughts or a topic you'd like to hear about next time. Do self-driving cars actually stop in time? Why do gas stations have those weird octane numbers? I'll dig into it. Until then, stay curious. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements are based on current understanding and public information. And hey, next time you buckle up, take a second to appreciate the millions of hours of engineering packed into that simple click. You're not just putting on a belt. You're stepping into a life-saving system that's been tested, refined, and proven over and over again. Drive safe.